Welcome to the Wellbeing Podcast, where every episode is a step toward a healthier, happier you. Today, we're diving deep into something super interesting: healing through feeling. It sounds a bit counterintuitive, right? We've got some great sources that explore how facing our emotions, even the tough ones, can be the key to unlocking true well-being.
It is fascinating how often we try to avoid uncomfortable feelings, and these sources suggest that this avoidance might actually be what's holding us back from truly healing and growing.
It's like we're trying to outrun a part of ourselves. Speaking of running, we're going to explore the work of psychologist Stephen Hayes, whose own childhood really informed his ideas on the power of feeling.
Powerful story. He grew up in a home where expressing emotions was almost seen as a weakness. His father turned to alcohol to deal with anger, and his mother struggled with unaddressed anxiety. It was an environment where feelings were bottled up.
And that environment taught him to see emotions as something to be feared and avoided. But here's where it gets really interesting. Hayes' own struggles with anxiety and panic attacks later in life led him to view pain in a whole new light. He realized that acknowledging and describing our pain is the first step to healing.
And this is where the idea of self-invalidation comes in. Several sources highlight the danger of dismissing our own feelings. If we tell ourselves our pain isn't big enough to feel or that we shouldn't feel a certain way, we're blocking ourselves from healing.
So instead of powering through or ignoring our emotions, we need to show up for them. What does showing up for your emotions look like to you?
Showing up means acknowledging our emotions, allowing ourselves to feel them, and understanding that they're a natural part of life. And it certainly doesn't mean dwelling in sadness or getting stuck in negativity. It's more about recognizing what's there.
This makes me think about how avoiding pain can also mean missing out on some pretty amazing experiences. Do you think that's what these sources are getting at?
Absolutely. When we try to protect ourselves from discomfort, we also shut ourselves off from opportunities for growth and joy. It's like being inside all day because we're afraid of a little rain, but then we miss out on the sunshine too.
Okay, so we've established that feeling our feelings is important. But how can we actually do that without feeling totally overwhelmed? This is where Hayes' concept of observing emotions comes in. He suggests a more mindful approach, rather than just trying to muscle through.
Observing our emotions is like taking a step back to create a sense of safety around our feelings. Instead of getting swept away, it's about slowing down, noticing what's happening in our bodies, and labeling our emotions without judgment. Think of it like watching a wave roll in. We don't try to stop it or fight it, we just observe its power and motion.
It's like becoming a curious observer, like a scientist studying something under a microscope. This reminds me of what Hayes says about moving toward yourself, not away from pain. He differentiates healthy self-care from using distractions to reject ourselves.
And I think that's a really important distinction. When we engage in activities we love, it should be about self-nurturing, not escaping our feelings. We should choose things that bring us joy because we deserve to feel good, not because we're trying to numb ourselves. What resonates with you about this idea of self-nurturing versus escaping?
For me, it's about recognizing that engaging in things I love shouldn't be about checking out or shutting down. It should be about nourishing my spirit and making a conscious choice to experience joy. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about pain as a guide. Hayes suggests that instead of seeing pain as something to avoid at all costs, we can use it as a roadmap for growth. What are your thoughts on this?
It's a powerful perspective shift. Pain can be a signal that something needs our attention and care, not something to be feared or ignored. Maybe it's prompting us to examine parts of our lives where we need to make changes, or seek support, or simply offer ourselves a little more compassion.
It's like our own personal check engine light. We don't want to ignore it. We want to figure out what it's trying to tell us.
Yeah.
This leads us to another one of Hayes' intriguing points. Don't cling to feeling good. He uses the analogy of a bird that flies away if you grasp it too tightly. What a powerful image, Red.
I love that analogy. It speaks to the fact that emotions are transient. They're always ebbing and flowing. When we try to hold on too tightly to positive feelings, they tend to slip away. It's about allowing ourselves to experience the full spectrum of emotions, knowing that none of them are permanent.
It's like trying to capture a beautiful sunset in a jar. We can't hold on to it forever, but we can appreciate its fleeting beauty while it lasts. And speaking of embracing the full range of human emotions, Hayes emphasizes the importance of self-kindness and compassion, especially when we're struggling.
Absolutely. Self-compassion becomes so crucial in those moments when we're feeling down. Instead of piling on with self-criticism, which only makes things worse, it's about offering ourselves the same kindness and understanding we would offer a close friend.
It's like giving ourselves a warm hug instead of a cold shoulder. We all deserve compassion, especially from ourselves. Speaking of kindness, Hayes also brings up the importance of patience in the healing process. He cautions against seeking quick fixes for emotional pain and reminds us that true healing takes time.
It's true. There's no magic pill for emotional well-being. We can't rush the process. It's about being present with ourselves, taking things one step at a time, and remembering that setbacks are part of the journey.
Like tending a garden, it takes time, care, and nourishment for the plants to truly flourish. We'll be back in a moment to continue exploring this idea of healing through feeling.
It's like we're learning to become our own best friend, offering ourselves that same gentle support and understanding that we would offer someone we care about. And this idea of self-compassion really ties in with one of the other sources we have, which outlines something called the feel method.
Oh, right. Feel.
Yeah.
Face, embrace, and loves all sensations. It really emphasizes the importance of confronting our feelings instead of trying to avoid them.
Exactly. It encourages us to get curious about our emotions, not to get swept away by them, but to observe them with a sense of openness and acceptance, like a scientist observing a new species in the wild.
I like that. So, how would you say the feel method complements what Hayes is saying about mindfulness? Are they basically saying the same thing, or is there a subtle difference?
They definitely complement each other. While Hayes emphasizes the importance of observing emotions, the feel method offers a practical framework for putting that into action. It encourages us to actually face our feelings head on, to embrace them as part of our human experience, and ultimately to love ourselves through the process.
It's like the feel method is giving us a set of tools to work with. It's one thing to understand the concept of mindfulness, but it's another thing to know how to apply it in our daily lives when we're facing difficult emotions.
Exactly. And both Hayes and the feel method recognize that our emotions are not our enemies. They're not something to be feared or conquered. They're valuable sources of information, and they can actually guide us towards a deeper understanding of ourselves.
That's interesting. What stands out to you as the most valuable piece of information our emotions can offer?
Our emotions can show us what we value, what matters to us, what brings us joy, and what causes us pain. And if we're willing to listen, they can point us in the direction of growth and healing. They can help us to understand our needs, set healthy boundaries,
Right.
and make choices that are aligned with our authentic selves.
So instead of seeing our emotions as weaknesses, we can view them as a sort of inner compass guiding us towards a more fulfilling life. It's like we have this built-in guidance system, but we often ignore the signals or try to shut it off completely.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of inner guidance, one of the other sources, Heal to Feel, highlights the crucial role of self-compassion in building emotional resilience. It suggests that we deserve kindness and understanding, especially when we're struggling. What resonates with you about this idea of self-compassion?
I think we often have a much easier time extending compassion to others than we do to ourselves. We might offer a friend words of comfort and encouragement when they're going through a tough time. But when it comes to ourselves, we're quick to judge and criticize.
It's true. We can be our own harshest critics. But when we practice self-compassion, we're choosing to offer ourselves that same kindness and understanding that we would offer a loved one. It's like being a good friend to ourselves.
And wouldn't you say that having a strong sense of self-compassion can make it easier to handle difficult emotions?
Absolutely. Self-compassion allows us to acknowledge our struggles without shame and to approach our emotions with curiosity rather than judgment. It helps us to create a safe and supportive inner environment where healing can occur.
It's like building a foundation of kindness and understanding that can help us weather the storms of life. And remember what we were discussing earlier about how Hayes talks about finding purpose as a driving force in our healing journey. It's like that purpose can give meaning to our pain and make it more bearable.
It can help us shift our perspective and see our struggles not as random events, but as opportunities for growth and transformation. When we have a sense of purpose, it's easier to find the strength and resilience to navigate difficult emotions and life challenges. It's like having a compass that guides us through the darkness.
It gives us a reason to keep going, even when things feel tough. It reminds us that our experiences, even the painful ones, can serve a greater purpose in our lives.
And this whole idea of finding purpose also ties in with Hayes's challenge of the idea of self-reliance. It's like he's encouraging us to let go of the belief that we have to go it alone, to reach out for support when we need it. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a really powerful message. We've been conditioned to believe that asking for help is a sign of weakness, but in reality, it takes a lot of strength and courage to admit that we need support.
Exactly. It's so important to remember that we're not meant to go through life's challenges alone. Reaching out to loved ones, therapists, or support groups can provide invaluable guidance and a sense of connection during difficult times. It reminds us that we're part of a community and we don't have to carry our burdens alone.
And it's not just about receiving support, it's also about offering support to others.
Absolutely. When we open ourselves up to both giving and receiving support, we create a beautiful cycle of connection and healing. We realize that we're all in this together, and we're all capable of offering each other love, compassion, and understanding.
It's like weaving a tapestry of human connection, where each thread represents a moment of shared vulnerability, empathy, and support. We'll be right back to wrap up this exploration of healing through feeling.
Yeah, it really is. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what do you think is the most important takeaway for our listeners?
Hmm. I think don't be afraid to feel your emotions. Even the challenging ones are not your enemies. They're like messengers carrying important information that can guide you towards healing and growth. That's such a powerful reminder. Our emotions are a part of us, not something to be feared or rejected. They're a source of wisdom and guidance, and they can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and a more fulfilling life.
It's like learning to speak a new language, the language of our hearts. Once we start to understand this language, it can open up a whole new world of possibility and connection.
And ultimately, isn't that what well-being is all about? Feeling connected to ourselves, to others, and to something larger than ourselves. It's about embracing our wholeness, the light and the shadow, and recognizing that all of it contributes to the richness of our human experience.
Absolutely. And it's a journey that we can all embark on no matter where we are in our lives. We all have the capacity to heal, to grow, and to experience joy.
This has been such an insightful conversation. It feels like we've only scratched the surface of this fascinating topic. But I hope our listeners feel empowered to explore their own emotions with curiosity and compassion.
Me too. And I hope they remember that they don't have to do it alone. There's
Mm.
always support available, whether it's from loved ones, therapists, support groups, or even just from taking the time to listen to their own inner wisdom.
Beautifully said. Thanks for listening to the Wellbeing Podcast. Take care, stay inspired, and see you next time.